you and I jumping in. All right, so walk me through the exciting news. Okay,
So,
first let's introduce yourself and your story real quick, and then walk me through the exciting news,
okay,
or do both. So, and I'm excited for you. So,
okay. So, I'm Scott Ledford, owner of MetroSite here in Commerce, Georgia. Back in July 14th of 2023, we had a catastrophic fire that burned our recycling facility to the ground. Um, that was determined that it was lithium ion battery packs, not the modules, but the cells within the module had been illegally placed in a dumpster at SKBA battery facility in Commerce, Georgia, and hauled to our facility. And they ignited, and approximately 800 of them was in that roll-off container. And uh, it burnt the facility to the ground. We had over during the firefighting. It lasted about 4 days. Took 60 firefighters and I think 7 different volunteer departments that showed up and participated in putting it out. Over the last 15, 16 months, we've been openly pursuing a trial with them in Jackson County. We sued them for replacement costs of the building and the business being down. We ended up getting a judgment here in September the 26th, I think it is. We got a phone call from them around lunchtime, and they wanted to pay a standing settlement that we had, and we had no choice but to accept it. And they had to get the money to us within before midnight that night. That was the last day that settlement actually aged out by 5 p.m. that day, and
yeah.
they had to get everything done in a rush, and they did it to get rid of me.
All right, so walk me through this. So you basically you were so accidentally or purposely or whatever way you're going to tell me it happened, one of your customers was, had basically put lithium ion battery packs improperly into like packs that were sent to your facility. Those battery packs started to fire, all the other things, and that story's been out there. I mean, you and I did a story a year ago to really talk through what had happened. And again, really the importance of training corporate as well, not just training the public on how to properly destroy and how to properly reuse and recycle batteries. So that's really the crux with this. And again, your buildings did burn down, which is freaking horrible. You got a judgment from them. Why is that not the greatest thing ever, right? So it was a $31 million judgment, right?
Sounds like a
So
lot of money, don't it,
yeah,
Ryan?
like
It
you should be
sounds
ecstatic.
huge. Yeah,
It does. It
had
sounds
to
like a
be
lot
doing
of money.
backflips. Yeah, I
Right, but
mean,
so tell us the reality of what that means, like in real numbers, if that makes sense, right? You have to rebuild your facilities, right? So how much do you have to do that out of that
so
amount?
you can figure, in a case like this, um, the lawyers take it. I guess the word is called contingency. Is that correct? To where
Yep,
they basically are working for nothing until you get a settlement, right?
100%.
Um, huh? Right?
I said 100%. I'm
Yeah,
agreeing.
yeah, yeah. So so they take it on contingency, and so they're fronting all the money for expenses for the experts, everything. Takes that burden off your plate. On the other hand, is that when they take a case on contingency, they get the lion's share of it. I mean, they got not the lion's share, but they got 45% of the settlement right out of the gate.
Yep.
So you take 45% off of the 31, and then you got to take the expenses, which is a separate line item that's not included in the 45%. You got to take that off as well. Then you're left with this amount, and you've got to address any outstanding debt that you would have had. You've got to address if you're going to build back, you got to put money back into it, build back. There's just literally at the end of the day, there's virtually nothing left, especially when you walk into the room and you think you got $31 million, but at the end of the day, you have one or two left at the one time it's all
Yeah.
done.
No, and again, I mean, it is. that's important. I mean, I think the question is then, so now you finish this and you have at least something. I know there's a couple other cases, whatever, but you did demand that you were able to not have a confidentiality around this, right? That's a
So one of the
So I mean, the
strategies,
reason you can talk to me about this today, right? I mean, this is where, I mean, obviously I'm not a journalist, but I mean, I did a story for you and on, like I'm excited for you, but I definitely want every operator out there to understand, that again, it's always better not to have something like this happen so that education of the commercial or of the business entity to recycle properly, right? I mean, for a construction and demolition site like yourself, I mean, that's literally, or an operator like yourself, like that's the crux of all this, right?
yeah, yeah, that's correct. You want to a couple hit on a couple of things you just said right there. One thing is that um a takeaway that I want everybody that's an operator out there that could be put in the same situation, whether it's a battery manufacturer or if it's whomever it is, if there is a known, I say known, that's not probably the best way to say it. If you suspect that there could be something shipped to you, or if you have any doubts, or if they've shipped something to you in the past and you tried to renegotiate terms with them, I'm telling you from, if you don't listen to nothing else I got to say, that's the point you hire your attorney. Hire an attorney, get the contracts drafted. So if you do
Hmm.
continue doing business with them, they don't have nothing to escape to. See, these guys give me all these promises that, hey, it's never going to happen again. But if it does, we're going to be liable for all the losses.
Sure.
And on top of that, we're going to pay your downtime. We're going to pay you that $1,000 an hour or whatever that number needs to be for your
Right.
case. We're going to pay you that until we get you back on running. But you ain't got to worry about nothing because this is not going to happen again. Right.
Sure.
So, but that's great. That's great for Scott and Ryan. We can shake hands on that. And that's the way it's going to be for the rest of our life. And we'll live up to that. But when you're dealing with a corporation and you got somebody out there making promises that is not ultimately the highest level of corporate decision maker there, that guy will turn the other guy's statements into, well, we're not backing that. We're not doing that. It's not our problem. They're going to run from it when the rubber meets the road and they got to pay for something. They're not going to want to do it without a fight. And you need to spend a few $100s with an attorney, get you a good drafted contract with them to where that puts them back in their court. Because if you don't have that kind of stuff, one of the things we talk about, and I don't mean to skip around on you, but it's important right here, is that insurance. Insurance is a huge issue with recyclers. Huge issue. It's a lot of your cost. It's a lot big expense. So when we entered into this lawsuit, of course we entered into a subrogation agreement with the insurance company so that they would get their money back.
Hmm.
And when you pay for the insurance, why you want to give them the money back? Well, I want to give them the money back so they'll insure me again and I can go back in business. It's kind of like, this wasn't like a fire that was caused by a maintenance issue or a faulty piece of equipment issue. This was a fire that was created by an illegal action that was brought to your property through a trespass act that 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 you don't need to have that responsibility, or that don't need to be gigging your
Right.
pocketbook for the rest of your life. So it's important. It's important to understand that when you get this $31 million settlement, that's another expense that's got to come out. That comes out of your side. You got to pay that insurance company back if you want to try to get insurance with them again and continue to run.
Right.
So just continues to erode that number down to where there's not a lot to it. Yeah, I'm proud for the win. What we done was a strategic act. We were placing a halt demand. If you're familiar with a halt demand, it just basically is an avenue that you can go in and you can if you have justification, you request the extent of their insurance, and their extent was 31 million. That's all the insurance they had. So we filed that, and they had 30 days to answer it and tender the money. And they could have tendered the money with the court or tender the money with the attorneys, either way, but they have to tender the money to validate that contract. They just can't say, "Oh yeah, we'll agree on it," and then drag it out for another 6 months. It has to happen. So
Right.
that
No, that
was
makes
that
sense.
was the positive side of it, and that's what happened. The negative side of it is that you never get in front of a jury. You never get to explain to the public and your peers what happened. You never get that opportunity. They never truly pay for their crimes. $31 million to a company like SKBA is absolutely nothing. They
Absolutely.
could do that once a month and it probably not hurt them. You know what I mean? It's just a
Well,
lot.
well, yeah, and I mean, I want to be clear that like this isn't bashing large corporations, right? I mean, this isn't small man versus big man. I mean, it's a little bit of obviously David versus Goliath in this case, right? Because I mean, had you been part of $1 billion organization that could have gone up against an SK, sure, it would have been, changed the leverage, right? But I think, the reality is that, like larger corporations, to your point, the person who you shake your hand with doesn't mean that that person's the person that you have a deal with. So you got to paper it and make sure that, I mean, I think you're right. I think a lot of waste and recycling operators take on undue risk that they don't need to take on, but they don't know how to mitigate their risk through like legal actions or, all the different things that good operators do. And again, that's why we're doing this, right? Because you're trying to help operators out there, and again, whether you're running a yard for, a $1 billion company or running a yard for, and it's your own business, you still have the same type of issues, right? And the insurance is still the same, right? Unless you're, to the level of supporting yourself. So,
Well,
would you
attorneys in
would you agree with
general,
that?
yeah, I do. Attorneys in general, especially if you're bringing them in for preventative, let's just say, just as a preventative measure,
Yeah,
um, people in general just don't want to deal with attorneys if they don't have to. Attorneys are somewhat of a whipping post of all of us that we just don't want to deal with them. Don't want to have to deal with attorneys. Don't want to have to pay the rates. Don't want to have to the whole 9 yards. I get that, but as we grow, it really doesn't matter what size we are. But as we go through this business, and as technologies are changing and different opportunities are coming to the table, the risks that we would have seen 20 years ago are not the same today. There's a lot more hidden risk. These vape pens, these cordless drill batteries, just in the battery world. And then you've got chemicals galore that is now, you can purchase online, or you can purchase through different hardware stores. And you start mixing some of these things together, you're going to end up with issues there. The point of it is that bringing the attorneys in, get you drafted, get you protected, and make those customers sign off on the fact that you send something that's not on the list, that's not approved to come to a recycling facility or even a transfer station facility for that matter, that they're liable for it. It's their responsibility. And the thing about this deal with mine, they were fighting this tooth and nail all the way. There's no telling how many thousands and I can say this, and Gus would agree with me, my attorney, that literally thousands of times that they objected to every move that we were making.
100%. I
Just
mean,
object, and just really. And I was just, I'm not an attorney. So I'm like, what's going on with these folks? Why are they objecting to what is there to object on that? All they're doing is trying to get it into the record. This is
yeah,
all prep for appeal. All this is being done so they can prep it for appeal. And I said, I got you. So the glorious thing that comes out of the 31 million is the fact that I'm not going to be doing this for another 2 years. I won't be
yeah,
going to
and
appeal.
now
I
you
mean,
can
and there's got
sleep
to be
at night.
something for that.
Well, and now you can sleep at night. And I mean, I'm sure this has affected you. I mean, so from a family perspective, from okay, hey, like, I mean, you said that you're going to rebuild. Are you planning on rebuilding? I mean, is that like today you at least
So,
have the ability, right?
so
So,
here's the thing and this is another thing people need to know, need to understand that you have to, then they've got a big word for it. It's basically you have to mitigate you you have to mitigate your damages. And in my case, I had to start rebuilding because that would be mitigating the damages against the downtime fee that they had agreed to pay to me. And if I hadn't continued to reinvest back into the business, then they would have a much stronger platform to try to get that money dismissed. So we cleaned everything up, cleaned the site up. Then we had to get EPD approval that we're back to zero, right? We're back, we're cleaned up,
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
fresh, we're good. There's no
you had
contaminants.
plastic film. I mean, you had plastic film and EVs in a large blob sitting on, that fell through the ground that you used 4 million gallons of water, right? So, I mean, this was this was not a small operation, right? I mean, one little battery pouch, right, caused a 4-day basically fire. And again, you just to say to everyone, like you didn't have a fire rover, not that that makes a difference, but I have to throw that out there because I don't want everyone to think that a fire rover burned down. But anyways, well, and I don't know honestly whether you had it. I mean, there are, we've had one catastrophic loss in, the 10 years that we've had. Like that one could have been one of those ones where you did because you had wind and you had like you were basically dealing with, there's only so much you could have protected yourself just based on how everything was dropped off and laid there, right?
Yeah, I think it's important, Ryan, at this point, I think it's important for people to know that when I built this facility, that I had been talking with y'all about doing the fire rotor. It was something that we were going to do. But if you remember, when I was finishing this facility, it was landing right in the middle of COVID. So I was getting a lot of out of budget costs that were coming at me every which way. And I think
Yeah,
that number was just
inflation.
out of budget numbers that were things was priced at one thing, and what I end up actually having to pay for it during that time period was nearly another $700,000 on top of what it should have cost me to build the facility. And I say all that to say that if you probably need to if you're starting to try to trim your budget, don't trim your budget on your fire suppression side. So find you another place to pick up that money. I think that's a more my 2020 hindsight from my position would be that I was over budget and I needed to figure out where cost was at. I had already put the line share of the equipment in, and that's like a chain. So if you need a 20-foot chain to pull something, three 3-foot pieces is not going to help you. You're whatever, 6 whatever. So you got to be able to. I had to finish what I was doing to be able to make the facility run, but I didn't have. The fire rover was something I thought I'm going to do this here when I get my feet on the ground and everything gets going good, and I would have done it different.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I mean, that's not what I was kind of getting at. I just, like at a certain point, I mean, what happened to you in your fire wasn't internal. It was outside and blew into your building. So like, you don't know, I mean, like you could have overly prepared, and that's really every operator, right? I mean, it's the waste and recycling, like the type of material that's being brought in and can't just be dumped and hidden away. It's being audited, right? So that's where I see a lot of this is changing, where yeah, you might have been able to get chemicals in the old days, but we didn't know that they were chemicals coming into transfer stations, tip floors, and like we didn't understand it all. And then batteries have obviously, as we can imagine, or I mean, just every vape. I mean, we're talking like 20 million vapes a day. Like disposable vapes get thrown away, right? Like,
Yeah.
and disposable vapes are not disposable. But okay, so let me ask this question. You really, so you are planning to rebuild and you are
Oh yeah.
planning to
So
build the operation.
yeah. So I'm sorry, I was going down that road.
No, it's
The
okay.
building is up. I've replaced the building. It's fully erected.
Oh,
The
nice.
electrical is probably, I'm going to say, around 90%. I'm waiting on a couple of custom panels for it. I've got a roto chopper that's supposed to be delivered, I think, next Wednesday.
Awesome. I
So
mean, so you are rebuilding. So this is like a phoenix, right? I mean, you're rising from the ashes of 2 years, and you can now free yourself. I mean,
it is, but I can only take it to processing. I can't take it to sorting because I can't get the insurance for sorting. So
got it.
that's my problem. Um, so we're going to try to just in the interim, we're going to try to just process our cardboard and wood products.
Got it. So you change the type of material that you bring in to the beginning to get it started. I
Yeah.
mean, you do, because I mean, you had two full buildings, right? I mean, you had a pretty big operation. I mean, I've seen.
I had a dedicated bale storage building. It is 80 by 160, and I just
Uh-huh.
had put up it's the baler in it's practically brand new. I think it was about 4 months old when the fire happened. So I've got to sit here and pay for that thing all this time and not been able to use it. And then the main building is 120 by 305 or something like that.
So the real question is, the fire department is still standing, right? Right next to you.
It is, and that's another thing I want people to know. Like my situation is very unique. I don't know how many more MRFs you're going to be able to find that's literally 20 foot from the fire station. I just don't.
Right. Oh,
That
100%. You guys, I
yeah
mean, you
that
do have a fire department 20 feet away, right?
yeah
So that's
yeah.
crazy.
So when they were fighting that fire, there was two teams that stayed on that side of the building for 4 days protecting the fire department.
Wow. So, I mean, that is a defensive approach, right? So that makes sense. So after all that, I mean, I can imagine how much water they needed to use too. So that was part of the 4 million gallons, or that might be a different.
It was
That
what
might be a
yeah
different.
because the here at my facility the fire department's in like a cul-de-sac and we're just like the driveway right beside it. Um, so the 4 million gallons or whatever that was everything that was drawn down this road during that time period. Because none of the
100%.
business the other business I have down here was not operating, and so they were gauging it off of the what the street usage was.
Got it. No, I mean, again, I mean, there's always valuations, always hard. And I mean, it is one of those things, right? I mean, you'd always want to get more. I mean, would you have asked for more now if you could have, or is that, I mean, or is this one of those that it is what it is, and you're not gonna, you can't look back.
Um, it is what it is. I think that's you, after living with this for 24/7 for the last year and a half. Um, you can't get your feelings hurt. You just got to take it and go on. You can't dwell on it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, they always say like it's business, right? But I mean, again, that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt personally. Let me ask last thing. I mean, like, because to me, again, the most important thing that I try to get out to, everyone, at least every operator, is you have to make sure that the businesses are educated as well, right? And I mean, I do see a ton of money being spent on, like, let's help the public not throw away their vapes, but really I think the training around businesses really gets lost in translation. Like, I don't see a lot of it. I mean, from your side of this, right? I mean, like, what are you don't have to share this story, right? You're sharing this with me. I mean, you and I have, obviously, we've been talking for a long time. I've done everything I can to help you, because at the end of the day, I do feel that you were a victim in this case, and I do feel waste and recycling operators are victims. Like, all of these materials are loading on their tip floors. I just had one customer who literally had a bike brought from the city, with a lithium ion battery, dropped on their tip floor, and then the city called them and sent them a $75,000 bill for them having to deal with hazmat that actually had come from that city. So it was like, again, I just think there's so many things that we need to work through. What would you tell every other operator out there? And, like, what's your, what are you looking to say the best lesson for you in this?
Well, first, I would have to say that my reason for talking with you here today about this and is the same reason that you're sitting here taking the time to talk with me. Is you have a passion for the industry and you want to educate people and you want to protect them. And if a story on the East Coast can protect somebody on the West Coast, without them having to learn it the way I did, that makes me sleep better at night. And that was the main reason why we didn't want confidentiality. We wanted to be able to share this story with operators because this is not going away. There's a lot of facilities being built across the country that manufacture these things. There's a lot of other products out there that pose the same threat, and they're you can't take it lightly. You can't take it, well, I can deal with it. I can handle it. If I see it, I can stop it. I can put it out. Well, let me tell you, we did it too. We've stopped it. We had 3 other events that caused fire from these sales. And but there were only one or two that ignited at a time. You could basically take a shovel and kick the thing over to the side. It would burn out in 3 to 5 minutes, and then it was very anticlimactic. You just had a fire out there, and it was easy extinguished. Not extinguished. It was easily controlled. But when you get a situation to where you got 800 from I think one of our experts, we asked him why did it just keep coming and keep coming? Why would it not? Why did it just not stop? And he said, well, the thing is everything was layered in there and insulated to a degree. This is the way he envisioned it. I can agree with
Hmm.
that. The other
Yeah,
thing
in the
is
pile.
that yeah, but then you've got a chain reaction of one cell basically igniting the cell in close proximity. And the high pressure, I learned a lot of stuff even about from the firefighting side of it. Is that the high pressure is not your friend with this. The low pressure, high volume, is your friend. And we graduated to that as we fought this fire. We figured that out real plain and simple. Um,
High pressure is your friend in the beginning. Low pressure is your friend when you're trying to contain it, I should
yeah,
say. But yes, I 100. That makes sense.
yeah,
So you feel you've learned a lot. I mean, and again, I mean, I guess like so, because again, most importantly, right, is your confidentiality that you negotiated. So that's what you're most proud of, right? Because you can actually talk about this and not have to basically hide it like you've been for the last 24 months.
that's right. I
Right.
mean, it, the industry's not benefiting. If I'd have got a confidentiality with this, they paid something for it or whatever, and I negotiated and that they got worked out. Okay. In my eyes, that couldn't have been a very low number because I wanted to share it with my friends. I wanted to share it with people in the industry. So I put the number high enough to where they had to look at it pretty hard and most likely would step away from it. And that's what they chose to do. And with that, I want to hopefully enlighten folks so that it can't happen again or won't happen again, or at least when it does happen again, they've heard something from me or you that they can apply to this and it ease that year and a half, 2 years down the road that they're going to be spending fighting to get their business back, that they really done nothing wrong and but lost their business.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and I
It's almost
also,
like
I
a
mean,
tornado.
100%, and it is. It's like, there's, I always say with like lithium ion batteries, right? We are asking for what we want. They're giving us what we want. The manufacturers are not doing anything bad, but what they need to do is, especially when they are doing what they did in your case, they should be held responsible and they should pay the damages for it. And I mean, make you whole, right? So that's really and again, I mean, it's very clear that you're not whole, right? Like, I mean, and so this is, yeah, it's a $31 million win and it's a big number, but like you're not better off than you were had you not had this event in the first place.
No, I mean, no, there's no way to twist that number and say, oh, it's a windfall. There's not.
Got it.
And at this point, this is what I got. This is all I'm going to get, and I trade it positive and go on. But for the guy that's looking at, wow, $31 million, um, I think he'll take the wow part away from it when he looks into it and sees how much it breaks down. And you need to know that going into dealing with a case, you need to understand what is your whole number. In that whole number, you need to include all those extra costs then you need to total it up. And
Yeah, I know.
but and that would help you decide whether or not that you would do a halt demand or take the strategy that we took. If that number don't make you whole, don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah,
We
no,
thought that
100%.
we thought, and I think that we were right up to a point. Um, but we'd had a hearing a few days before they accepted that settlement number. And I think at that hearing is where they ultimately, we were going to have a hearing the following Tuesday anyway, so it didn't matter other than just the clock running. But I think at that point they realized that their spoliation of evidence, that we had proof enough to really put their feet to the fire.
No, 100%. And I mean, and you did, but to the smallest degree that you feel that was deserved, right?
Yeah, Yeah, well, it could not exceed the limits of the liability. Under the Holt demand, you can't exceed their insurance.
Understood. No, that makes sense. Well, so Scott, thank you very much. I mean, honestly, I think this is extremely valuable, right? I mean, I appreciate that you're sharing your story. I mean, I mean, I'm not a journalist, but at the same time, I mean, like I have a ton of followers who, I think would be more than interested in hearing and understanding your story. And I hope that they learn a lot from it, right? Because, I mean, that's what this is, right? I mean, the goal is, like you said, to make sure that someone else understands that, again, it's not just all on you, right? I mean, it is, it's a partnership with your customers, especially if, they're a significant amount of your business. You need to make sure that it's fair playing field no matter what your levels are.
Well, I'd like to say this before we quit here, Ryan, is that
Oh,
me and you've been friends for several years, and we give each other crap when we see each other and all fun. But I'd like to extend this as I appreciate what you do for the industry. I appreciate the amount of effort that you put into and you call it what you will, it's still journalism, but it's journalism done in a way to benefit people, not journalism in a way to manipulate or for self-benefit. And I see that, I recognize it. I wanted to say thank you from my side because you enlightened me on a lot of subjects when I watch and read some of your work. And I just wanted to take a second and just tell you that outright.
oh, and I appreciate that. So, I mean, I only have a tear, but I don't know if I'm even allowed to cry a program. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well,
And I look forward
I'll
to
try my
seeing you again.
best to give you more. I'll try to give you more crap so you'll forget about that. How about
Yeah, no, I
that?
love it. That is a deal, my friend, and like that is a deal. So I will buy you a steak next time too, because I will get. I'm not gonna like expect to be riding on your yacht anytime soon, but I'm sure one day we're gonna blow up your business, and you'll be able to get all the things that you and your family deserve. So, all right, thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you again, and I'm sure we'll do something else like in the next few months. But I'm excited that at least the resolution is done, right? So at least, I don't know if my article helped, but I mean, just to go out there and basically, try to make sure that the operators are heard because I know it sounds crazy. Our operators are, make billions of dollars, right? I mean, collectively, but they still need to be heard. And I mean, there are bigger industries out there that mute what we're doing. So I appreciate it.
You're mighty welcome. And anything I can ever do for you, please reach out.
You as well. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks. Thanks.